Hello, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening if it's evening. Again, oh, good morning. Do you know what I've been thinking? Oh gosh, if you're joining us and you're not part of the boot camp, this is the first time you've met me. Hey, I'm Jess. Oh, morning, Nikki. And I'm oh gosh, simply you're dialing in from South Korea. I hope we tried to design the timing of this one to be fair for folks in Asia and in Oceania, just because y'all usually get left out of stuff being scheduled. So I hope this is a good time for you. So hello. I'm Jess, and I help run really the brains behind this whole thing is Mervin. So if anybody wants to say hey to Mervin, Mervin is our brilliant colleague behind the scenes. If you get like an interesting link in the chat, or if you see something useful pop up on the screen, all Mervin. And we've been learning web development together. At this point, honestly, after the very first class, y'all are absolutely able to call yourselves web developers. You say, oh, but Jess, I want to be a web designer instead. That's cool. You're a web designer, but you're writing HTML, you're writing CSS, you are a developer. And if anybody tells you you're not, I will personally have a very aggressive word. So, what we're going to be doing today, and don't forget that we're in the beta curriculum. Let's look at where that sits. So, oh, welcome back. I assume it says your name if you're following along. If you've told them you're Jessica Rose, that's going to be, unless you're another Jessica Rose. I was going to say that's deeply troubling. We're going to take a deep breath and come all the way down to the bottom of the page. And we're hanging out in here. And remember, this is week 4 of the boot camp. So if you're just getting started, oh, it's Ramon. Ramon is another one of our instructors, and he teaches JavaScript later in the afternoons. He's an absolute sweetheart, genuinely, almost suspiciously nice. So we've been doing this for about 4 weeks. So if you're just joining us, this is your first session, don't worry about trying to get caught up right away. We've got all the videos over on YouTube or here on Twitch, if you're on Twitch, and you can catch up whenever you want. There's no tests or quizzes or taking a test, none of that. Y'all are adults. And look at all this stuff we've done. This is terrifying, isn't it? I really liked this one, the accessibility. It's really hard. But what we're going to do, and we've already done 2 of our projects. Yesterday, we were talking about pseudo selectors, right? And really, if you wanted to look those up on MDN, I'd search for pseudo classes in CSS, not pseudo selectors. And what we're going to do today is we're going to absolutely make you all carry me. Oh, Jess, how is that different from any other class? I mean, it's not, but we're going to do some abstract painting with CSS and HTML, of course, but this is going to feel like a review. Yeah. Oh, Robert, of course y'all are adults. There's something I've been thinking about a lot recently about not just programming or learning, but about work as well. Oh, someone's asking if the Discord group is going to go away. No, let's leave that up. Everything's fine. It would be very strange to be like, ha ha ha, we're going to close this. I don't see any reason to. Remember, if you've been with us before, if you don't remember, that's okay. This is how we structure out our HTML. The first thing we do is say, yo. And when we say yo, we're talking to our browser. And when we talk to our browser, we do that to communicate with our user. So we write our HTML and saying, hey, browser, do this thing, but do it so you can show users what's going on. At the end of the day, it's all about your users. So we start with what's going on. We've got a doc type. And what is it asking us to do? Add an HTML element. And remember that sometimes you'll see this called a root element. And this is really, so first we say, hey, this is HTML. We say, our HTML is going to go in here. And we've got a head and a head. Oh, heck. For almost all elements, we'll have an opening and closing tag. Some of them are self-closing just to be hard, just to make that more difficult. They're like irregular verbs, aren't they? We start our body. We're going to close our body. And Can you all tell me what it's very likely to ask for next? We've got a head tag. What do you think it's going to want next? Ooh, we've got our green stripe. We can keep going. Within our head element, add a meta tag with a care set attribute to UTF-8. Ooh, because I'm the meanest teacher. Why? Why am I setting a meta care set to UTF-8? And you don't have to be able to talk to me about what UTF means in detail, but why do we think we do this? Sasha, you were absolutely right. You're like, come on, I see the head. I know y'all are going to put some meta in there. Yeah. And let's get a title in here as well. And remember, this title isn't going to show up on our page. This is the one that you would see up in the top of the tab if you were a user. Because I'm very lazy and because I'm prone to typos, I'm going to Control C or Command C, Command V. But talking about how all of you are adults, it's been something I've been thinking, not that all of y'all are grown specifically, but it always seems so strange to me that we try and tell adults what to do. Isn't that so bizarre? And you'll get it in work and you'll get it in really school and academics where people say, you need to, or I'll need you to. Oof. How strange. I think people forget that you can't really tell grown-ups what to do, can you? All right, ref. And we're going to link that to styles.css. I've been typing as we go just because we've done this a couple of times. Oh, so Lunatic Omega's asking, what's a meta tag? Oh, heck, it should be a self-closing element. So a meta tag is adding the sort of high-level information your website needs. I'm going to ask my really brilliant colleague, Mervin. Mervin, could you grab the MDN for that meta? And I think it's going to be meta tag HTML, isn't it? And this is a really nice time to say this bootcamp is super free. You can't get much more free than free. You literally cannot pay us. Do not try and pay us. If anybody says they're me and asks for money, it's not me. But Free Code Camp, the folks who make our curriculum, or the curriculum we're using, we don't own this. They're a separate organization and they're a registered nonprofit. If you have the money and if you want to, it's really, really solid to donate. Yeah. Don't you spend money you don't have, though, yeah? So one thing we're going to do is we're going to link to a font. Yeah. So we're going to do another link element. Here we've got a rel is equal to style sheet. Remember, the rel is just like, hey, here's what we're going to be doing here. Here's what's going on. Here's the deal for this information I'm going to pass you. We're going to link to this font, I bet, because we're going to use it later in our CSS. Yeah. Ooh, Sasha. I love this question. So, sorry. Sasha's asking, well, it's a painting. Why do we need UTF-8 for a painting? Will it only affect the title? Do you know what? I'm not even sure. I think all of the titles might be in UTF-8 by default, just because UTF-8 is the default encoding. The real reason we're doing that is it's just good practice. It's part of what we do. Yeah. We might want to add some text to this later. We might want to add a bio later. So just, hey, we know if there's going to be text, if there are going to be characters on this page, we know that that's how we're going to encode them. Yeah. So why do we need that if there's no characters? We might add some characters later. But I think the reason it's in this tutorial is to get us used to always typing it, isn't it? Submit our code. We got that green stripe and everything's fine. The thing I love best about talking to learners is you all ask these great questions. Because I was like, oh, we put in the care set because we put in the care set. And you're like, okay, but why? We're writing some more. Notice that we moved from our HTML file over here. Oop, that's very busy. From our HTML file. And we're not in our HTML. We're not seeing these little pointy braces anymore. We're over in our CSS now. And these are two separate files that make up our website. We've got that. And we're going to set some rules for all of the elements. Let's give you some more space for this preview. All of the elements within our body. All good. Nikki's asking, okay, but why UTF-8? Why not another UTF? UTF-8 is just sort of where we're at now. That's the standard character encoding. I'm going to go ahead and get it. Do, do, do. And it's sort of the standard. Oh, gosh. Would you like some documentation? Would you like some very dry documentation? Please. So Unicode are the friendly nerds in charge of, they're a standards board. So they make the rules about how we deal with symbols online. And that can be stuff like UTF-8. The Unicode Consortium, it's not very pretty, I believe also handles things like emoji. So UTF-8, it's an encoding system for Unicode. Yeah, Unicode are the folks in charge of what's going on, and UTF-8 are cool. This is the encoding that we're using right now. Oh gosh, Unicode. No, I think I'm just stumbling. Although technically the Unicode people are in charge of the Unicode. The Unicode people are in charge of the unicorn emoji. So really, they are our unicorn farmers, aren't they? Background. We're gonna set we're painting. I really like this because we're gonna get to be a little bit creative. You say, well, Jess, they're telling us what to do. How creative can we get? They are telling us what to do. And we're using RGB here. So what we're saying is, hey, I'm using this format, RGB and these smooth braces to set the color. Give me 184 out of 255. So actually quite a bit of red. Give me 132 of green. So, high, medium amount of green. And give me, just give me 46. Just give me a little bitty bit of blue. Oh, and that's kind of it's kind of a baby poop color, isn't it? Sorry, that's not a very graceful way to discuss that. But we've got our green stripe. Apparently this aggressive sort of tan is the color we were aiming at. Let's keep going. Divs. Come on, I'm not going to say it again. Y'all have to do it. What is a div? We're going to set an ID, and that's cool because we think this ID is going to be unique. There's only going to be one ID per page. But y'all, it is a non-hypothetical question. You must, if you don't mind, not bother. Let me know, what is a div? It's a conceptual. So we've got our div and the ID is set to back wall. I'm going to check our code. Hey. And so we were in our index. We were in our index.html file, and we made this div. Cool. And over here, goodbye HTML. We're going to go back to our CSS. We're going to say, write some style rules just for the back wall ID element. And remember that IDs are unique. And if we're selecting all of an element, no, gosh, Leanne, don't you apologize for being like, Leanne's like, it's a conceptual box. It's a real imaginary. And Sasha's the same thing. It's like, oh, cool. It's us making a conceptual rectangle. And you say, well, Jess, why have you been telling these lovely learners it's a conceptual rectangle? Isn't everything a concept? Well, yes. Troublingly, everything is concepts. We're all just ideas. I'm absolutely delighted to get to learn with y'all. Y'all are just some of the most delightful people and the most delightful ideas I've gotten to meet. So our background color, we've got, and check this out. We're using two different dynamics for color right out of the box. You say, well, why, Jess? And I say, oh, it's because this is a tutorial. It's because it wants to sort of continue to review different things. Those of you who are working in development now can back me up or argue with me. I'm very rarely convinced I'm right. I think you would usually stick with one way to select color for a project. I think if you started with RGB, you'd probably keep using RGB. If you started with hex code, you'd probably keep using hex code. We're mixing these up just for funsies. Ooh, we've got a oh, please. That's done nothing. Why? And Nikki's got a question about like, hey, why are we using the hash here instead of the dot selector? And Leanne's got it perfectly. Leanne, even before I was paying attention, Leanne was like, I got you. This hash is for an ID, um, whereas the dot is for your class. So an ID, there's just one of them per page. It's a unique element, but a class is sort of a club that you can put multiple elements in. Leanne, you are keeping me lazy, and I was always going to be lazy. But come on, why aren't we seeing this dark brown color anywhere? Why is our conceptual box still invisible? I bet y'all know. And I've dropped my hot water bottle, so I'm going to give you a second to catch up with the lag and grab my hot water bottle. I am all about being absurdly comfortable. Oh, here's a really good hint. We've got to give our back wall element some size. So I'm taking a wild guess that we're not seeing, yet Leanne is perfect. Whoa, gosh, that's a lot of pressure telling you you're perfect. Leanne's pointing out, you know what? We made a conceptual box. We made a real imaginary box, but it doesn't have any size yet. It's just a completely empty. Yeah, and Sasha's got it as well, where Sasha's like, look, the div that has this ID is empty. Nothing's going on here. Let's give it some empty space. Let's give it some size. Set our width to 100%. 100% of what? 100% of what? Still nothing. So we've added some width, but that's because we've added width of 100% of the parent element. But there's no height. You can be as wide as the universe, and if you are 0 tall, you're going to be very, very difficult to see. I would hesitate. Durably invisible. Height is going to be set to 60% for the parent element, and boom, right away. So you say, cool. We've got our parent element here. Let's see if we can find that. Goodbye, Styles. Come on down and say, what is this div living in? So here we've got our div, and our parent element is the body. So really, that's going to be our viewport, isn't it? I think if I unzip this, both the body, both the tan and this brown child element are going to continue to grow. Oop. Just because they're set to 100% of what's going on. I'm going to check our code. We've got that green stripe. Everything's chill. Oh, actually, if it's not a bother, I am so consistently hassling everybody to, relax. Make sure you get some good downtime. I would love some recommendations. What do you all do to relax? Yeah, I'm very, very into reading comics right now, but I'm always looking for more new ways to unwind. And don't you say you write code. Maxime, if you head over to the forum, you can get to the Discord from there. So we're going to learn about this weird thing. So typically, HTML starts at the top and it'll draw things or render things in order. Yeah. But sometimes you want to move that around and say, okay, well, I've written this way, but I want to push or pull. Yeah. Leanne, you've moved furniture to relax. I'm not in a position to judge, but relaxing, is that relaxing? So we're going to set the position attribute of our back wall to absolute. And that's going to remove the element from the flow. So when I say position absolute, I mean, hey, I understand you've got sort of a natural order. I understand you've got a flow. I want this element to not respect that flow. Cool. I want to remove it from the flow of the page. Nice, nice, nice. And then once I do that, I can set these. So I'm going to set the back wall to have a top value of 0 and a left value of 0 after setting an absolute position. I haven't done this in a million years. So let's see. Oh gosh, what can we do when we don't know the syntax? We can ask somebody who might know. And that's almost never me, is it? I'm so sorry. We can experiment. We could try different syntax, or we can look it up. And I think I'm going to do it in that order. So if y'all know the syntax, yell at me. But I'm going to experiment a little bit. Oh, and we've got some really, really nice suggestions for ways to relax. Ajit, you said, I play Among Us. Is that the thing with the little blobby things? And we've got a position. Set it to absolute. No, I can't even spell absolute, can I? I really like the beta curriculum because it asks us to reason this out. Oh, so Sasha's asking, what, before we set this, why is there some border around the back wall? I think this is going to be the default padding and the default margin because we said 100% of the width. We should expect to see this completely overlap. What I think we've got is I think we've got some default padding or some default margin chilling out. Yeah, I think we'd probably want to add, um, want to address that if we wanted to get rid of it. Oh, Elios, you made some crackers today? How highly specific of a way to relax. And then Leanne is helping me out. And she says, well, you know what? It says set a top value of 0. Oh, gosh. And Sasha, what you were asking about, where you say, hey, why is that not fully overlapping? And I say, okay, it looks like that's because of this natural flow of the page. We've got these sort of default margins and some default padding maybe going on. And here we're saying, I don't want any of that nonsense. Go ahead and put it at 0 for the top. Acharaf, you are absolutely amazing. You go running in the mornings? And we're going to move that over. I confess that I always lie to myself. It's green, everything's. I lie to myself almost as much as I lie to my students. And I say, oh gosh, I'm definitely going to go running tomorrow. I want to talk to you about the Z-index. Most of what we're going to be doing today is review. And you might notice that there's like 80 steps in this lesson. It's especially cruel. I'm going to make you do like 70 of them by yourself just to be a mean teacher. But I do want to slow down and talk about Z-index because a Z-index is like a stack of pancakes or a stack of books. I don't have any pancakes with me, but I do have some books. So shall we get some books and talk about a Z-index? And I'm okay. I'm going to use this excuse to recommend some books to you. Oh, let's get this book about human history and kindness. Oh, let's get this Chomsky book, Reflections on Language, classic. And let's also get, what do we think? Tech ethics, or do we think algorithms and weird? Let's get both. And we can have 4 books. Ooh, yeah, I really like this one. All right. Oof. Heck. I am seeing a sudden and obvious problem with my setup. So I have 4 books. I've got Silicon Valley. Ooh, heck. I've got, I'm reversed, aren't I? I've got humankind. I've got, you know what? Let's simplify this. I've got an orange book, a white book, a green book, and a black book. Yep. And our Z-index. Ooh, what does our Z-index start with? Do we start with 0 or do we start with 1? Ooh, and -1 can happen as well. So Z-index is the ability to, heck. A Z-index is asking us to imagine that our elements on our page are stacked in a 3-dimensional stack. And you say, no, Jess, no. How can we have a 3-dimensional stack? We're looking at things rendered in light. They're flat. And I said, well, we're picturing these as a 3-dimensional stack because what we're doing with the Z-index is saying, take this and move it somewhere else in the stack. So let's try that with actual CSS first. But then, if it still feels weird, we'll shuffle some books. And for future classes, I'm reminding myself that 4 hardbacks is too many hardbacks to pick up. Leanne's got it right. So Leanne's previewing this for us in a way that is merciful. Leanne, did you mention you were a teacher as well? So Leanne is always out here delivering the information we need. And really, do you know what? There's a lot of things I love best about teaching you all, but you all are always so nice to each other. You know what? You being nice to me is kind as well, but I really like y'all being nice to each other. So we're going to set a Z-index. Oh gosh. So we're still inside our back wall ID selector. It's nice to, oh gosh, you must be exhausted. Oh, all the wrangling of homeschooling. So we're going to set a Z index here. And we're going to set that to -1. You just get 2 books this time because 4 was far, far too many to hold. So Leanne pointed out that the higher a number, yeah, Chumley is asking, oh, is the default Z index value 0? I think that's absolutely true. I think you start out with sort of the natural flow. So say, well, the way you've put these down in the HTML is that humankind is first. I mean, if I set the Z index to humankind and I say, oh, you know what, right now this is 0 or 1, like, and I say, oh, I want to, it's a lot of glare, isn't it? Um, if I say, give me a little bit less light, please. Ooh, that's still too much. If I say, hey, this white book, I'd like the book that's behind it to show again instead. I could say, I want to take this one and I'm going to lower its Z index. I'm going to set it to -1. So the element that was behind it is showing instead. Or there's 2 different ways to do it. I can lower the Z index of this white book, or I could take the Z index of this green book, the green element, and say, you know what, could you please raise this to, and you could say 2 or 5 or 7 or 12. I'd really only raise them one at a time, just so when you introduce more elements, it doesn't get confusing. But I have definitely in my day say, well, I don't know the Z index. I'm going to set this to 400 because I don't even think I'm going to set it to a silly high number just to be confident that this is going to pop to the top. I don't even think, can you set it to 400? Is that a real thing? What's the maximum? When we set that, Z index of -1, and that seems like, but that hasn't done a hecking thing. Since the back wall element will need to appear behind the other elements. Here's the problem that you will be creating. So Free Code Camp is asking us to do something that is very, very common sense and very, very good. And I never do. So I always got to the end and it's like, oh, who needs to be in front? Pull them up or push them back. And what Free Code Camp is doing is saying, Jess, that's so irresponsible. You should teach the learners properly. And here what we're saying is we want this brown box to be in the back. We want this to be in the background. We want it to be behind the other elements. We're going to give it a negative Z index. And that way, even as we add other things, it'll be stuck to the wall. So we've got a div here. We've got our conceptual box. And then we gave it a color, which did nothing. But then we gave it width and height, which showed our color. And then we pinned it to the back. We've put it behind the other elements that are going to come in. Let's give it some friends. It just said, oh, y'all are adults. And here I am. Oh, let's have, it's very a bit Mr. Rogers first thing in the morning. Your Mr. Rogers was a American kids presenter a long, long time ago. Oh, a long, long time ago, Beans, back in my day, who was just very gentle and very lovely. So we've made another what Chumley is saying the maximum Z index value is, hang on, 214,748,364. And you know what? Don't do it, but y'all could be making stuff up and I'll be like, no, I mean, Chumley said so. I believe it. Apparently we can have many. We can have a real big old stack. So we've got another invisible conceptual box. And I bet we're going to, yeah. Oh, and inside that box, so we've got this div class characters. And in here we've got, where am I? Oh, hey, Naraku. So you're actually with us live this time. Oftentimes we've got it pre-recorded. But you just happen to be awake when I'm awake. So we've got our div of back wall up here, our brown one. Then we've got a div of characters. And now I'm making a div inside that div, a box in a box in a box. And here our div ID is called Off-White. You know what, lazy as I am. Let's copy and paste that. And this is giving me a little bit of a hint about what I'm going to draw in here, isn't it? Oh, do you know if you all are interested, I know, and let's close our div. I know it's a little bit boring to make art that other people tell you what it should say. Oh gosh, Mervin found the Wikipedia for Mr. Rogers. Mervin, did you know? Did because Mervin's very young for being as smart and interesting as Mervin. Did you know about Mr. Rogers? Like, is he a thing for young people international? No, I bet no. So we're going to make 4 div elements inside our off-white element. And there's going to be white hat, black mask, gray instrument, and tan table. I've got a little bit of an idea of what these are going to be. And a div, and we know they're all going to have IDs. We know that developers are very, very lazy. And we love 2 things. We love deleting code, whoa, deleting code, but we also love copying. So what I'm going to do is Command C, and I know I need 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice and lazy. But I'm also going to copy the IDs just out of an abundance of laziness and to speed things along. Eh? Oh, we were supposed to be reviewing CSS today, and instead I've been like, oh, do you all know about Mr. Rogers? Oh, no, my lovely, you don't need to apologize. Usually, most folks do catch this. Don't compliment me. I'm already so full of myself. Most folks catch this afterwards, and I'm always stressing that you can go ahead and check this out anytime. Oh, I've got so Mervin's like, no, I don't know about Mr. Rogers at all. Do you know what? Oh no. I think for research for the next cohort when we do our planning, we're probably gonna have to have a team viewing session of Mr. Rogers, like very deadly serious technical research. We're gonna submit our code and bop on to the next challenge. So we've got a character. Okay, how it's a bit menacing, just a character. It's not a person, it's not a bunny, just an entity. So we're inside our div, we're inside our invisible conceptual box because it doesn't have any size yet, nothing in it, called black mask. And we're going to come in there and give it some eyes. So we're going to do, look how lazy oh, heck. I thought I was going to get away with, oh, heck. I thought I was going to get away with being able to keep copying and pasting div ID, but I forgot that I pasted the ID names as well. You see me like, haha, no. I don't mean to attribute. Okay, so let's see. Um, Messing stuff up. Ooh, this is exciting. Oh gosh, and I'm wrong. I am durably, cheerfully wrong. I don't even want an ID here. I want classes. Remember that IDs are unique, so there's only going to be one black mask ID on the page. But classes are cool because they're clubs. We can set multiple rules at the same time. So we're going to set 2 classes for each of these. So they're both going to have the class of eyes. Again, nice and menacing. We said, well, we'll just make some eyes. A little bit more space, huh? And one of them is going to have the idea of left. Okay, cool. And one of them is going to have the idea of right. We've got this. When you want to have specify multiple classes, just toss them both in there in the quotation marks. You don't need a hyphen because a hyphen would make it a single class called eyes left. Well, eyes hyphen left, isn't it? And here we want to make 2. I'm going to check our code. And as long as we've got that green stripe, it's just sort of a, whew, everything's chill. But I want to talk about, oh gosh, only briefly, the value of being wrong. Yeah. So if you remember way back in week 1, we had that really good talk from Barbara Oakley and from Zach Caceres, who were just brilliant, aren't they? And they were talking about how we learn programming, really the neuroscience of learning. And one thing that's really excited about how we learn is we don't need to be right to learn. Sometimes that feeling where you're wrong and you keep sort of hitting your brain against a wall. You're like, wait, why is this wrong? And you've got to sort of fight with it to make it work. That process teaches you so much. Isn't that just absolutely monstrous? Where I'm cheerfully saying, ha ha ha, being wrong will help you learn, but it absolutely will. So we're inside our ID of gray instruments. And what we're going to do here is we're going to make 5 IDs, and they're all going to have the class of black dot. Because I am the laziest programmer, I am going to write, well, I mean, I'm not even going to write the whole thing. I'm going to copy and paste that. So I want 5 of these. I'm going to copy that. 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, to be a lazy programmer in the middle of winter, eh? Or, oh gosh, summer for some of you. We're going to hop on to the next challenge. And so we're using an ID selector to make a rule for the div we made with the ID of off-white character. I am going to be brutally lazy. Can you tell me what I'm going to need to type to set this ID selector? I'm not going to do any of this. Oh gosh, Maxime, you're pointing out the Discord we posted in the forum is expired. Not a problem at all. We'll get that replaced right after this session, and that'll be posted to the forum. You are so patient. Thank you for flagging that for me. So, what do I type to do an I? Or do you know what? You lazy as I am. Give me the whole thing. Give me the code for this. And oh, Jess, are you telling us to give us? Jess, are you asking for the syntax because you want to make sure we're learning? And yeah, that's it. It's not because I've got a coffee in front of me getting cold. And unfortunately, y'all are too fast, so I don't even get my coffee. I'm seeing Leanne and Ajit and Sasha like, hey, we got that hash because it's an ID. Remember the ID selectors with the hash and the classes with that dot. And then we've got our curly braces here. Yeah. In here, let's go ahead and set this. We're going to set our width. I'm going to ask y'all another question in a second because right now there's still nothing in there. 300 pixels. We're going to set our height of, and when I set the height, what do we think is going to happen? Oh, dang. Can you please tell me, it's my second chance to get a coffee, why this has width and height? Why is it still invisible on the page? Why can I still not see anything? Oof, the lag isn't going to let me get a coffee. Ha ha ha. Ooh, dang. A giraffe is just like, I've got all the syntax for you. And Nikki as well, but like, we've got all the syntax. This is still invisible because our, oh heck, I've got coffee all over my mouth like a proper adult. We've got an ID selector for a div, and our div has width and it has height. But right now it's clear. Yeah, Ajit, it's got no color. What are you supposed to see? Ajit, and I'm always praising y'all for being right, but feel free to be wrong sometimes. I mean, I'm doing it every day. Background color. I know it sounds super scary, but the thing I want to suggest more than anything else. Oh. Why? Oh, wrong. Is it? Is it? Oh gosh, yes. Thank you so much. I was just like, oh, let me tell you about being perfect. Everything's fine. Ooh. Why is it on top? Ooh, and let's just real fast have a play. So what do we think the z-index would do? So z-index is going to move it up or down in our stack of pancakes or in our stack of books, because I know some of you are very, very into books. What happens if I set these? Ooh. Where is it in our stack right now? So right now, it feels like we can see it. It's not being covered by anything else. I think it's on the top of our stack. And remember that the higher the number is, the more towards the top it goes. So if I've got, heck. And actually, I picked these 3 books, not just because they're all different colors, but because I quite recommend them. So I've got these 3 books. I've got a black, ooh, being reversed is just breaking my heart. I've got a black one, a green one, and an orange one. And I said, well, the top is black. If my black book is already on top. If I increase the Z index, if I increase the Z index, all I'm doing is saying, oh, hey, I'm moving it closer and closer to the top. It doesn't really visually do anything. Whereas if I reduce the Z index, if I say, oh, our Z index right now is 1, 2, 3. If I reduce that, I say, oh, I'm going to take this one. I'm going to make the Z index 2. Ah, heck. I'm moving it. You know what? I'm going to start doing this with brightly colored pieces of paper. The books are fun, but they're rather unwieldy. So, oh gosh, y'all are stuck on step 21 and 20. Let's hurry then. So I just want to show you that if I say, because we've got our brown one set to -1, we have to set this to minus. Why aren't you moving? Hmm. Hmm. All right, let's examine that later. Because you both are saying you're stuck on 21 and 22. I want to come back to that because I would have expected that to snap to the back, wouldn't you? So let's hustle through the next ones, a couple of ones of these so we can get to step 21 and 22. We'll also do question and answer. Somebody remind me to play with the Z index when we pass step 22, just to see what was going on with that. We're not, oh no, gosh, everything's fine. Leonardo, I love this question. And I'm going to be very cruel. And I'm going to ask other folks to answer this for me. So, and there's no right or wrong answer here. So it's not me putting y'all on the spot. When should I use pixel over M or RAM or even percentage? When should I pick different kinds of units of measurement? So I'm going to move the off white. So I'm going to set the position to absolute. And I've already misspelled absolute once today. So I'm going to try this. And then we're going to set a top value. So what we're doing is we're saying, hey, let's remove this from the normal flow. Oh, yeah. I'm going to remove this from the normal flow. I'm going to set the top value to 20%. And this comes into Leonardo's question, really saying, hey, when do I use pixels? When do I use percentages? And Leanne's got some really, really good information for us. And saying, well, one of these is absolute. So a pixel is a pixel is a pixel. It's always about yay big. And M is relative to the parent element. So what element encases this, even if it's root? And rem is always relative to root. Really, it's picking the best tool for the job. If you want something that's really, really friendly with responsiveness, maybe you want to stick with something that's relative to the parent or the root. If you want to make sure that it never shrinks beyond a certain size or grows beyond, pixel's going to be the way to go. If you're doing art and you want it to be relative to something else, these percentages seem like a really chill way to do it. We're going to use our ID selector, which we remember that's going to be that hash. We're chill. And because I've mistyped one of these just a moment ago, I'm going to paste this one instead. And I think we're going to add a width. Spell properly. Of 0 and a height of 0. Well, that's very strange. I don't think there's much of anything. Oh, and then a border style. Solid. Oh, I've sold. Well, I don't expect this to do a dang thing, do you? Like, our width is 0 and our height is 0. And what's the border of nothing? Oh, gosh, wait. Is that... Oh, I lied. You know what? I bet y'all can't see it a bit. But if you're doing this, if you're following along at home, do you have the teeniest, tiniest, little tiny black dot over here, which is the default border size on our effectively imaginary, our effectively 0 width, 0 height, little tiny border around that? Oh, how exciting. I was going to say, well, we can't see anything. And it was just me with my old lady eyes not being able to see it. So this doesn't look quite right. He says, well, you know what? To me, it didn't look like a thing. So let's go ahead and set our border width. And something I really like about CSS is a lot of the properties do what they sound like. I think British folks sometimes say it does what it says on the tin. So Let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy and paste these values over because I'm well lazy. I'm going to size that out. Oh gosh. Hmm. This is very strange. We've got a big, bold, black stripe. So there's no width or height to our box, but we've got a very, very thick and wide border. Huh. So really, we've created this big black bold stripe by setting a very, very sizable border around something that, you know, conceptually doesn't have much to it at all. Check our code. Everything's fine. What step are we at? Step 20. We're almost to 20 and 21. Let's check these out. So we've got a big box. I mean, they're all boxes, right? We're going to give it a border top color, a border right color, a border left color of transparent, and the bottom color to ghost white. I can't really conceptualize what this is going to look like yet. And do you know what? This is a really good time to say, we're doing this as a tutorial, but a bunch of people make CSS art to make cool, weird art. And it's a border top. Oh, so Maria's saying, why did we set the top, left, and bottom to 20% left and 70? So we set after setting the position to absolute. This is really cool. So we set the position to absolute first because that's us telling the browser, we say, yo, I'm going to do something weird. The first thing I need you to do is remove this element from the rules of normal flow. Yeah. So there's sort of a natural flow to your bit. And do you know what? There's a technical term for it. I do not remember. Ramon, you're here and I'm going to pick on you. Do you remember what do you call the natural flow, natural layout of a page? It's not the natural flow. That would be very convenient for me. You love what I'm doing. It's really like someone else look this up for me, please. But so there's a natural top-down flow for how these things are laid. I don't know why. We'll look it up in a second. So there's a natural flow to the way elements are rendered. But when we say position absolute, we say, hey, I want you to suspend those regular rules first. And now that you've suspended those rules, I want you to set the top to 20% of the parent, please. And then I want you to set the left. I'm so sorry, I'm reversed. It's very to 17.5. So saying position absolute is first yelling, yo, remove me from your petty rules. So border top color, or it's normal flow, natural flow. Look at me like it's a river. We're going to set to transparent. I feel like I might have spelled that right. Border left. Oh, heck. So border top, border left color. Border. Oh, good morning, my love. Right color. And you know what? Some of y'all are just like, why are you spelling color without a U? And I'm so sorry. Not only does programming require you folks to use English. Oh heck! Look at everything that's going on. Let's get rid of you. Let's see what this is doing one at a time. Oh. So what we're really doing is we're saying, hey, these borders. I want you to take the top of this border and I want you to cut it off. Hang on. Let's do this one at a time. Control X. Control. Let's go ahead and write all of these down so we can get a feel for what's going on, because this is going to be super weird. Well, let's do border, and that's border bottom color. And none of you said you had a hard time with this one, but I have a hard time with this one. Yeah. So what? Sasha's asking very, very deservingly, what the heck? Why does this become a triangle? This is weird. This is weird. This is weird. This is weird. This is weird though, right? So let's do it one piece at a time and see if we can reason through this together. Maybe we can't. Maybe it's just going to be weird until we do a bunch of this. So first, the top of our border, cool, the top here, we're going to set that to transparent. What does that feel like? Okay. It doesn't seem to be doing much of anything. Okay. what we really want to tease out is what's up with these triangles, right? So the border left color, let's make that transparent. Yeah. I think that, and this is just me. I think the reason we're getting this triangle effect is because we first did transparent at the top. So we're drawing transparency from the left onto the top. I think if I take this away, let's cut this. I think if I take it away, it doesn't sort of have an axis to become transparent over. Isn't this strange? Isn't this delightful? You know what? It's definitely strange, maybe. Because if I made the bottom transparent as well, what do we think that would look like? So if the top and left are transparent, we get that angle. What happens, and I know we're not supposed to, but what happens if I make the bottom transparent? I think we're going to get sort of an arrow pointing, aren't we? Ooh, that's not what I expected. What have you done? Have you done anything? Oh, heck. Oh, that hasn't done a thing because because I forgot to put the semicolon. So really, if we make everything but the right transparent, we're just left with a corner in the right. So this is a triangle because we're setting, we're sort of using these to bounce off each other. We don't want that to be transparent. We do want this to be transparent, giving us sort of a hat feel. Y'all, is this hat a little bit wonky? Is this triangle like a little, it's not just me, right? But we are going to set this color to ghost white and see how that feels. What? Ooh, Leanna's asking, but isn't the border shape just a line? It is, but it's a line which in this case has quite a bit of width and dimension. Yeah? So it is a line, but it's a like this is a chubby pug dog of a line. It is a cute chubby line. And as it's a line, we can sort of cut it up. Gosh, I want to go ahead and pretend I never used cute chubby pug dog as an example because we can cut it up. This is a big wide cake. This is a big, yeah, so it is just a line, but it's a line we can cut up. Ooh, y'all. Oh, it's like a puppy. We can cut. It is a line, but it's like a line of cake. Ooh. So Naraku's asking a really, really good question. But like, what's going on? How can this line have 4 sizes? Let's get a look at border width. Actually, wait. I've lied. I'm going to go ahead and grab MDN CSS border width. How about somebody else said they were a little bit stuck on the next one. So we're going to go to the next one. But Naraku, are you from Nara? Sorry, that's very personal. I don't mean to bother you. I just spent a long time in Naraku, and I was like, oh gosh, that'd be a delight. We're going to go ahead and do the next lesson, and then we're going to come back and have a discussion about this because I want to dig into this a little bit more because this is all of you are asking good questions. So you say, and really the question that I think is best is what? I love this question because y'all were like, hey, lesson 21, 22, what even is going on here? And then we've got some good, more targeted questions. So why is this a triangle? Which is a good variation on what? Isn't this just a line? What? And then how can a line have 4 sides? Let's go ahead and do the next one. And then we're going to jump into, and I'm going to give you the cheat sheet, but we're going to look at this together. Hey, and we're going to be looking at the MDN documentation for this. Super, super chill. Yeah, nothing's going to hurt us. So I'm going to come in. I think we've done this right, even though it says to make it look more like a hat. And this does not look like a hat to me. But if you're going to give me a green line, I'm going to keep going. We're going to give our hat. Oh, so we're going to take our hat. And remember that position absolute is like, yo, the rules are for other elements. Remove me from the normal flow. So I say, okay, well, position is absolute. absolute. Precision is absolute. We're going to take this hat and we're going to remove it from the normal flow. And then we're going to say the top is minus 140. Ooh, heck, heck, heck. All right. What happened here? Right? What happened here? So it looks almost as if we, because these look like the same kinds of angles we saw from our triangle, from our weird hat a minute ago. But we haven't done any of those again. What we have done is we've taken that hat, which used to be, it's transparent, so it's hiding in our white box, and we moved that up and said, hey, move that up so we can wiggle it. And we can wiggle this as I mean, we probably have to be 140 pixels to pass. But we can say move it 100 pixels. Just move it completely off the page. Say move it 160. Oh, I'll move it 10. Just get the little tiny point of the hat. So when stuff doesn't make sense, get weird, wiggle it. Yeah. So coming to the top, and let's set the left value of 0. Oh, heck. Yeah. Yeah. Leanne, I think this is a really good way to point. So Leanne's saying, hey, yes. So the width and height of our div, of our hat div, is 0. Really, this is all padding. It's all padding's a property too. It's all border. If you've got oh yeah, and the transparency hides the, yeah. So really, this is like you've got an empty imaginary box, but you're wrapping it up in lots and lots of bubble wrap. Even though there's no width or height to the box, you get width and height of the border. All of that bubble wrap around the box is giving you dimension. You've got sort of a box that you can see and touch, but it's all that you've used 100 pixels on the top of bubble wrap and 100 pixels on the sides. So you've got a square box. You've got something you can feel and see, but there's nothing inside. The element inside has no dimension. And then that box of bubble, I really want to do this with physical stuff, but it would make such a hellacious mess. And then you can cut that bubble wrap or stretch. Yeah, you can add more. You can add to that border, even though it's all border. Yeah. Muju. I'm waffling about bubble wrap, and Muju's like, look, I got you, Jess. Back on track. Our border width at the top, there's nothing there, but 120 pixels on the bottom, 120 pixels of bubble wrap around our empty thing. And yeah, so it's a triangle because we've added and cut the border around our empty box. We're using a bunch of different metaphors and I love it. And you're like, oh, transparency. We're making that invisible. So either we're making portions of our sandwich invisible or somebody's grabbing a little bite. This feels weird, right? Does this feel weird? It feels weird to me. But really, these are intentionally trying to feel weird. We're making art, and we're making art to try and see what's going on. Yeah. So the two things I wanted to do is I wanted to take a look at the documentation for MDN together, just because saying, and you know what, we hear people say this to learners all the time, and it's so mean. We'll say, well, just look it up, or oh, just look at the document. But reading documentation is a skill, and it's a really hard one. Because a lot of this documentation feels a little bit, we're going to hop over to the MDN link I gave you a moment ago. A lot of this documentation feels hard to read because it's in pretty technical terms. So the MDN team, they're so smart and they're so great, but it's still hard to get this. And one thing I really, I quite like about MDN is they give you these little demos to play with. Yeah. So here we've got a border width that just says thick. Give me the default for what a thick border means. And here we can assume our box has some width and dimension because it's got some content in it. It's got a child in it. We can see what that would look like with 1M. Ooh, it's a much chunkier border. And we can see what it looks like with these border widths that feel a bit more like what we've been doing. Say, oh, give me 0 at the top, give me 4 along the side. Yeah. So I really, really like this. And it tells us right at the top what's going on and say, hey, so the border width is a shorthand. Oh, what's that? We can go and read it if we want to. We don't have to, but it was a shorthand. Oh, bye, Ola. So Ramon is going to be teaching JavaScript later today. If you're in the JavaScript course and you can make it, that's great. If you just want to sort of dip in and be like, oh gosh, what's JavaScript about? He's super friendly. It's not going to hurt you. So the documentation here is also intended to be super friendly. So here are some similar things, and we played with those. Yeah. And here's going to give us our syntax. And in comments, reminding us how CSS comments work, it tells us the keywords we've got. It tells us the kinds of values we can use. It shows us how to set this vertically and horizontally at the same time. It's giving us a lot of really late, and some of these are going to be hard where I say global keywords. Maybe I've never seen these before. And if I've never seen these before, what's inherit? One thing I can do is I'm going to take a deep breath and come all the way back up. I can come in, I can search. I could say, well, CSS, what does it mean for something to inherit in CSS? Oh, cool. Here's the inherit keyword. And you could just chill out in the documentation for as long as you like. Yeah. The documentation is still really challenging. Like people say, oh, just look it up. Learning what to search for, even by itself, is a skill by itself. And it just means sort of bonking your head against the docs until you, oh, these are the search terms that work really well. These are the things I can add. So here, if I'm in MDN and I'm stuck in CSS, I want to look this up, I'll probably make sure to say CSS. Yeah. Leanne's pointing out inherit. It means you're just going to go ahead and take whatever your parent is doing. You're going to do it yourself. Take those values from the parent element. Very, very mellow. So I want to do 2 things right now. First off, ask me any questions you've got. I will either answer them or try to answer them. I do want to go back because I promised we would mess with the Z index a little bit because I was a little bit confused here. And one thing, if we've got a minute of time, so please ask me any questions. You're not going to stress me out. Is I wanted to take a look at some CSS art. So let's do this again because I have not saved my progress because I'm very late back today. The top. Go ahead and check any questions you've got in 104. It's pixel by default, so that's very chill. Any questions you've got in the chat, I'll be super happy to answer. If you don't have any questions, I will just do whatever I like. Oh gosh, Robert, this is such a good question. How long did it take me to grasp all of this? I confess that one of the best ways to learn something is to teach it. I don't write HTML or CS. I actually don't write code as my main day job. If you came up to me on the street and was like, "Hey, are you a very good programmer?" First off, that would be weird. That'd be a weird thing to do. And I'd say, "Oh gosh, I'm cheerfully a little bit rubbish." Um, Really, the concepts around, oh, what's this keyword and what's this property? I cheerfully forget them all the time. But the longer you do these, the more comfortable you're going to feel. The one thing I will aggressively push is that if you're writing HTML, if you're writing CSS, if you're writing any code, you get to call yourself a programmer right now. Yeah. Um, and do you know what's really exciting is with a lot of deadly serious programmers, I see that folks start out really, really unsure, which is so natural. Like, oh gosh, what's the syntax? How do I write this? What's going on? And then they get super confident after they've been doing it for maybe a year or two. And then they get even more skilled and they're like, oh wow, I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah. So the more time someone seems to spend in the technical area, the more many people sort of come back and say, oh, I thought I knew exactly how all of this works, but maybe there's more complexity and maybe there's more mystery in it than I thought. So for me, the first time I wrote HTML would have been in 1996, maybe. And do you know how old I am? Did CSS exist? We weren't using CSS in 1996. I wasn't using CSS in 1996. But I spent a long time being a teacher. So let's try the Z index again. Oh, heck, because I wanted to set that to -4. Gone. Why is it gone? I can see nothing. We had a hat made of transparency and white, and I set the Z index to -4 and it's gone. -3, still nothing. -2, still ooh, there's minus. What is -1? So if we've got two of these set to -1, I think it goes with the natural order. um, but if I say 1, the only other Z index we've set is this dark brown element, which is -1. Yep, Leanne, in the same way that the highest value pushes to the top, the lowest value pushes to the back. Yeah, remember that we could take our stack of pancakes, or we could take our stack of books, and we could push forward, or we can pull back. And it's plus is to the front, minus is to the back. Look at me just like doing a little wave at both of you. Maria's got another really good question about the top and left. So where is 0 for an element? Yeah. So we've got two questions. Where is 0? And let's go ahead and let's play with this. Let's feel for 0, if that's okay. And the second question, which I love, is 20% of what? 20% of what? Because this is such a valuable and such a genuinely legit question. So if I say, oh, I'm going to set this to 20%, you're like, 20% of what? Genuinely, what is going on here? Cool. Here, these percentages are going to be a percent of the parent element. Yeah? So if we set the top to 20% of the parent, isn't it? Y'all check me if I'm wrong. But this zero. So 0 for an element, I think goes, so if we set the left to, if we set the left to 0, this is a bad example because we've got the corners cut off. If we set the left to 0, that should lay that all the way across. That should move it as far left as it can go based on the containers it's in, based on the parents that hold it. So 0 should mean 0. Oh gosh, we've got a good example. This brown box here. Where are you, brown box? What were you called? What was your name? You're definitely not off. It's back wall, isn't it? So our back wall, our top is 0 because we wanted to see where that 0 goes. And that is all the way to the top of our viewport, isn't it? And our left is 0. So we go all the way. Oop, we see on the right, we've got a little bit of space. But on the left, we go all the way to the edge of the viewport. So 0 means take it all the way to the end and go ahead and just cover up anything else you would have been competing with. Whereas the percentages are going to be a percentage of. Is that true? 20%, yeah, 20% within the parent element, aren't you? Let's check. Oh, I moved off-white character. I didn't move the hat. Yeah. So if I move the off-white character, push the top down by 20%, 100% take. You know what? I have no idea what I'm doing here. I love not knowing what I'm doing here. Oh, let's see. What do you got? Specify how far an absolutely positioned box top margin is offset. Oh, cool. I got you. So here, when I say 100%, I'm saying the containing block, your parent, push it down, offset it by 100%, pushes it sort of all the way outside of its parent, all the way off the page for us. I'm so sorry. What an absolute wobbly way to explain that. But yeah, top is against the parent. Leanne, every time I'm like, oh, here's 5 confusing, wobbly ways to say this, somebody else is just like, Jess, just say that the top is against the parent. The top is against the parent. I'm so sorry, my loves. I hope that was helpful. But Maria, if this still feels weird, A, you've tried to ask somebody who might know better, and you know I never do. I rarely do. I occasionally do. The next things to do are experiment and get weird, and to maybe take a look at the MDN docs. Sorry to explain that in the woofliest possible way. I hope that was helpful. In my head, it was a little bit confusing. Yeah, did anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, shall we look at some art? I'm gonna try maybe Code Sandbox. We could go to Code Pen if we wanted to. Um, trending, because we're already using Code Pen for our free Code Camp projects, aren't we? Show me trending. Show me trending. Look how beautiful this is. So some of these are definitely JavaScript, right? So 3GS JavaScript. I want to see, are you just CSS? I'd love to see projects that are only CSS. Oh, gosh, this is not all. But the cool thing is we can look at other people's projects. Look at this. So we've got a canvas. We've not seen a canvas yet. Ooh, what would we do to learn about how a canvas works? I'm going to search for CSS art. Y'all, look at this. Look how absolutely baffling and absolutely magical this is. Hang on. I don't know who this is. I hope they're a nice person. Ben Evans. Might just be a very familiar sounding name. I want to take you down here. Look at, heck. Look at what somebody made using HTML and CSS. There's no JavaScript at all. Look at these. Oh, look how powerful this is, and look how terrifying this is. We've got beautiful, exciting things going on. I personally have no idea how any of this works. Look at this. Oh gosh, there's a fire exit. Where's the fire exit? So we've got all of this wonderful HTML code. Ooh, P1 hover. So I think some stuff's going to happen when we hover. And just this really, really wide range of incredibly beautiful interactive art made with no JavaScript at all. Yeah. And I'm not showing you this to make it sound intimidating. Oh, Muji, my lovely, when you're asking who's this parent, do you mean in the last lesson we looked at? Oh, this is a really good general question. So what element is the parent? Yes. Achraf is asking a really good question to say, Jess, I know enough about CSS to know I need to be able to do CSS variables. I bet we're going to learn about CSS variables before the course is done. So CSS variables, if you're doing the JavaScript course as well, which you don't have to be doing, variables are a concept that could be really familiar to you from JavaScript, and we're going to be doing them in CSS as well. So one thing I want to do is I'm going to give you all this search term, because me just showing you art from a search, that's just taking up your time, isn't it? Here's just a bunch of but look at this. Look at this. Somebody made this car out of CSS. How unnecessarily talented. Look how absolutely talented people are. I'm horrified by how beautiful all of this is. Well, horrified, I mean jealous and loving. But I'm going to come back to this because we had a really, really good question from Mooch. And Mooch is like, Jess, sometimes I don't know who the parent element is. Like, how do I know which element is the parent? We got that. Like, this is such a good question. I get confused sometimes. You will get confused sometimes. What we're going to do is we're going to just take a look. I'm going to get rid of the preview as well. So all we're looking at is the HTML. How scary. And we're going to talk through what the parent elements are. So our root element is HTML. That is the most parenty element of all of this. All of our other elements are children of HTML, are children of the root element. And the way we can tell what a child is it's inside the tags, yeah? So And your by default, this is where sandboxes help us. This is where most text editors help us. By default, almost all the places you're going to write code are going to automatically indent this. Oh gosh, we're this way. Automatically indent this for you. And this makes it a little bit easier to sort of see at a glance who's a child. Yeah. So here, our head is indented, it's inside our HTML element. Oh gosh, that's going to be the child of the HTML element. Inside this meta character is inside our head starts here and our head starts here. So all of these elements are going to be the children of our head. But that's not so good. This is not a great example because we don't do much we can't do much with CSS, with the parent and children here. I want to come into the body because this is where we start getting really exciting. So our body element starts on line 9. I'm going to take it all the way down and it ends on line 28. So it ends before our HTML element ends. So our body element is inside our HTML element. So we know it's the child of HTML. Cool, 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 cool. This means that all of these elements inside body are the children of body. But this gets increasingly complicated because just like you have a grandmother and a mother and a daughter, you have generations in here as well. So the HTML is the parent of the body, but then the div right here, we've got a div. Who is the child of this div? Is there a child of this div? So I see the div begin and I see the div end, and nobody's living inside it. Yeah. So nobody lives in here. There's no element inside of this div. So there's no children to worry about. Back wall is a hip single person living by themselves, no children to worry about, not even any pets. But here we've got a div where the class is characters, and we see it begin. We don't see it end. Instead, we see another div. I think what we're going to want to do here is line 11. I want to find where this ends. We could cheat a little bit by looking for who's got the matching indentation. Is that you on line 26? Well, it looks like you on line 26. So we've got characters, everybody inside of characters until we see the closing div. Wait, is that? Nope. So we've got div ID, off-white characters, which ends here. So everybody who is inside characters until we see our closing div for characters is going to be a child of characters. And you say, oh gosh, is this the closing div? And I say, well, it's indented more than characters is, but also I think that this div we see inside of characters. So hang on, let's track our children. Here we've got a parent, and the child of back wall looks like it's characters. Okay. But then before characters ends, inside of characters, we're seeing the idea of off-white character. And that doesn't end. But here, inside of white hat, so white hat is the child of off-white character. Off-white character is the child of characters. Characters is the child of body. Body is the child of HTML. It's dreadful, isn't it? It's dreadful. So really getting used to and reading this code is going to be, you all remember I promised you a speaker who was going to come and talk to us about how to read code. And unfortunately, she had a bit of an emergency. We were going to talk to Felina, who's a professor. Oh, she's a very fancy professor. But so this week, we're going to have a guest speaker, Parham, who's going to be talking to us about accessibility, which I'm really excited about. But then next Thursday, yeah. Oh gosh, there we go. An inclusive design to approach design, development, and testing from Parham. Could be very technical, but very relaxed. But then the Thursday after that, someone help me, is that the 10th? It's the 10th? The 10th. So February 10th, Felina is going to come back and talk to us. So I think her talking to us about how we read code is going to be really, really helpful here. Yeah. So the way you find out who's the parent is you look for what element contains another element. But those can go, they can be like those Russian nesting dolls, can't they? That there's an element in an element in an element. And just getting comfortable with reading the code and be like, oh gosh, where do you end? And who lives inside you can be a good way to do it. I'm so sorry again to waffle and say, oh gosh, it is infinitely complicated if you see them as disparate elements all smushed against each other. But seeing them as sort of stacking dolls that live inside each other is a little bit more chill. Leanne's got such a good point here saying, well, when we're using code editors, oftentimes when you click on an opening tab, it'll show you where it ends. So getting those visual stuff like Visual Studio Code are going to give you a lot of hints there. Oh, and you've even got the opportunity to like accordion stuff up and see who the parents are, which is quite nice. I am going to gently and lovingly say goodbye to you all. Your homework is monstrous. Are you ready for your monstrous homework? I sound really happy about that. I'm of course not happy that your homework is quite a bit this time. We're going to take a deep breath all the way down. Whew. And if you're not caught up with all this, it's fine. There's no hurry. The video is going to be here. Oh, heck. We collapse you. So we've got 89 of these. So go ahead and get as far as you can through this Picasso painting. And then tomorrow, we're going to be learning about responsiveness. Responsiveness is super weird and and responsiveness just means, oh, hey, your users don't all have the same computer. They don't all have the same phone. How do we design for different kinds of screens? So we're going to be doing that tomorrow. It's going to be really, really laid back. And of course, your most durable and enduring homework is to be as gentle to yourself as you can. Like it's 2022. Stuff is big and loud and scary and weird. If I can ask you for nothing else, please try and have today be as soft and small and slow for yourself as you can. I'm going to let you go. Thank you so, so much for joining me today.